Hello, MicroGrinders. Alton from MicroGrinder.com back again with our second episode of our 10 and L series with a reg here, playing 10 and L on 888. This is a continuation of our first episode, playing his live 10 and L, 2 tables of snap at the top and 2 tables of regular 6 max. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Paul and let him commentate on his action while he plays.
Thank you very much, sir. We're straight into it here with a pair and a straight draw. We race under the gun against someone short. I kind of don't want to bet again here because I think I've given too much of a good check jam spot with his ace-x. So I'm going to just check back and then just decide on the river. Depending on what he does. If he checks again, I will probably bet this 3-bet here. It's a question of whether I 4-bet or not against somebody I think is probably going to be bad. And I think I'm going to 4-bet, and fingers crossed he won't 5-bet me. If he does, I think it's probably going to be a 4. I'm going to 4-bet quite large because we're a bit deeper, and I think he's likely going to be bad enough to call with worse hands. And fold down there. This would be frowned over by a lot of people. It's like, if I fall to a 5-bet, people are going to say, well, we're turning jacks into a bluff. That's not a theory I agree with because I was value betting them. And now this guy's pretty much told me that, no, I've got it. So I'm more than happy to fold it. I'm more than happy with the play. I'm happy with the way I played it. I'm sure some people will comment that I shouldn't 4-bet if I'm not prepared to go with my hand. I completely disagree with that, and I'll argue that point with anybody that my bet was a clear value bet from the 4-bet there against someone's a bad player. He's put a small 3-bet into me. I want to get more value for my hand, and then once he then makes a really small 5-bet, I just don't see people 5-bet bluffing in these games with anywhere near enough frequency for me to consider doing anything other than 4 jacks there. And if he's doing it with ace king, then well played to him. He's got me to 4 my equity share. Well, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that. I'd be interested if you disagree. I'd be interested to hear why.
No,
not for the sake of an argument, just for I am always interested in hearing alternate views.
yeah, no, I think in that spot, I like the 4-bet because his 3-bet sizing was really fishy, and I don't see any issues at the MicroStakes folding to a 5-bet, just because people aren't bluffing when they're 4-betting, 5-betting, well, even 3-betting. So, I mean, yeah, he might show up with ace king, but I think a majority of the time he's gonna have queen queens plus at that point, and you're just a huge dog. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, as you move up to the higher stakes, yeah, people are going to be, 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet bluffing or doing it with a lighter value, and they're going to make an argument for your jacks to either flat the 5-bet or just to jam all in. But I think at the micros, you're just spewing off money for the most part because people are just going to show up with ace, king, aces, or kings.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was important I explained before I folded the reasons. Before I even 4-bet, I explained it that I was 4-bet folding because I didn't want it to look like I was 4-betting, then oh shit, it's 5-bet, now what do I do? It was a conscious decision to 4-bet fold.
Right.
Because I believed there was definitely clean value to be had.
I think there's value to have. I think if he flats your 4-bet, then you know that you're ahead. A majority of the time, yeah, he might flat with queens, but the rest of the time he's probably flatting you with something like as weak as king queen suited, ace jack, ace queen, and then you're a clear favorite. So there's definite value to be had there.
I barreled this because obviously it gives me a significant amount of equity on the turn.
Oh yeah.
I should have explained that, but you were talking it when I interrupt. I wouldn't often barrel that turn when I get caught in 2 spots. There's so few cards I would barrel there. The ace of clubs, queen of clubs, 9 of clubs being probably the 3 that I would. And a king, obviously, too. But any other card, if that was to come off, say, the 2 of diamonds, I would not have barreled when I get called in 2 spots. But because it was like the perfect barrel card, I'm more than happy. I'm not comfortable if this guy races me, but I'm not giving this guy a good check-shove spot, but I'm also going to be getting insane odds to call, so
right.
I think that's a mandatory barrel, but I see a lot of people checking back, like, oh, I can check back now because I've got a lot of equity, I can improve to the winning hand. it's just using your equity to bluff with, basically.
Yeah,
Which a lot of people don't do, especially on turns, because they're scared of them being shut out of the pot. But I'm not too worried about that. I probably would have got it in even against the small blind. I'd rather not have got it in, but I think I'd have like 12 outs. There is a bunch of the money in the pot. I think I'd probably just get it in there and be behind nearly all the time, but just rely on my equity to bail me out.
yeah, with 12 outs, I mean, you're probably going to be getting, if the small blind or the small stack shoving, you're going to be getting really good pot odds and implied odds. So
Yeah,
you're not
it would
happy
be
to
the
get it in,
best
but you
here.
have good equity.
Normally I wouldn't do this, but when I've got a short stack of limp racing me, it's clear they probably want to get it in, so I don't really want to disappoint them. So we can just do that and get it in. And we lose,
That's
but whatever.
unfortunate.
Be more unfortunate at 100 and L. 100 and L wouldn't be quite as
Yeah.
philosophical.
At 10
10
and
and L, I'm
L
like, yeah,
for
who
30
cares?
big blinds, not too unfortunate.
But I think it demonstrates a good point of people would maybe put a small 4-bet in there or something. But when you get a fishy player with a fishy stack size who limp raises you and you've got a premium hand, just stick all the money in because that's what they want to do anyway. That's what they're trying to achieve. So let's not let them see flops and get scared. Let's just stick the money in, knowing that we're in great shape.
Yeah, and get it in when you're an 80% favorite.
I'm now going to bet this river. I had given up on the hand, but when he checks the river and all the draws miss, and I clearly have no shot, I had pretty much given up on that turn card. I don't believe I get any folds or anything to call the flop. Now I want to believe I can make a 7-fold, and I can credibly rep ace queen too.
Right.
So I'm not trying to make a 10-fold, I'm specifically trying to make a 7-fold, and some like ace high clubs and king high clubs and what have you.
Yeah, and that's either a mandatory give up or bluff it because you have no showdown value.
Yeah, well, I had given up, and I expected him to most of the time just bet the river and make me fall. But when he doesn't bet the river, I think we're kind of obliged to bet there when a card we can credibly represent comes off.
Yeah.
And he's showing not much interest in the pot.
No, that's the perfect scare card. So I noticed you opened ace five suited under the gun, playing six-handed. I probably wouldn't recommend that to beginning players, but as you become more advanced, you can easily open a suited ace under the gun as your post flop skills.
Which table was it actually? I think we were short-handed. I can't remember if we were.
I think you were six ways.
Which table was
It
it?
was on table one on the snap table.
Ah, right. Because that wouldn't usually be my range. That's probably still lack of concentration from me. Because that wouldn't usually be in my under the gun range. So that's just me talking, clicking buttons. Because I don't normally. I would do it if there was, and in my own games when I knew the player pool, if there was a fish at the table, I would do it. If it was all regs or a couple of unknowns, I definitely wouldn't.
Well, in that case, it's probably not that bad of the raise because you can probably assume that there's at least two fish at each table.
Yeah,
on
well,
the
in
snap.
these games, I mean, my advantage is going to be so large that I probably should be doing it at 10 of them.
Right.
But having said that, I'm trying to make a training video where I'm trying to do the proper things. So therefore, yeah, I wouldn't advocate anyone I'm working with to be doing that, really. When this guy check raises, he was just pretty much got me crushed. It was probably a bad bet from me, to be completely honest. Again, it was me just autopiloting. I probably should have checked back when he checked there. There was nothing much to protect against.
No, and he's repping such a strong hand with such a big re-raise. I mean, 4.5x on that board.
He's just repping, I want to get the money in, and I didn't want to get the money in, so I just folded. I mean, he probably would get more value from me by, I probably possibly call 2 medium-sized barrels there. By check raising, he's kind of making it easy for me. This is quite interesting because I kind of want to donk out because donking just makes people do strange things. I'm an unknown player to them.
Well, and there's also a flush draw there. I think that donking makes sense.
But it's kind of what's going to be best here, donking or check raising. That's the thing. I don't know anything about either player's tendencies, so I think I'm probably going to go for a fishy small check raise and just try and trap somebody with like tens or better into calling a few extra smallish bets. I'm not going to go big. I'm not worried about protecting against a flush. I'll deal with that. If a flush card comes, I'll deal with that when it happens. I'm going to check raise here because I've got a good shot and I've got a backdoor flush draw. It could be spewy, but we'll see. It's mainly because this guy's bet small, and this guy can only choose to call on this board, which is kind of, oh shoot, I didn't realise he 3-bet. My eyes are bet terrible. That was actually a bad raise for me, because I didn't realise this guy had put a small raise in. So again, that's just me. I'm making some really basic autopiloting errors here. So I should probably start to focus a little bit. I thought he'd bet 30, he'd called, which is why I went for the raise, because I just smelt weakness. Had I seen this guy had raised, I would certainly not have made this play. I just thought it was a 30-cent C-bet. It'd be quite funny if he's trying to pretend he's going to fold King-King here, because clearly he's not going to. Or clearly he shouldn't fold King-King here.
No, never. But the issue for him now, if you think about it, if he does have King-King, you just 3-bet him on the flop on a really dry board. Well, not that dry, but I mean, you're repping such a strong range, either the straight or a set, that he's thinking that what else would you be doing that with?
No, I kind of understand, but he shouldn't be putting it in the chat box. If he genuinely is folding King-King, it's not really something you want to be admitting to in those spots.
No. But I think you actually see those things are quite common at the micros.
Right, I'm going to raise the ace-5 consciously this time because of the stack sizes of the two blinds. It just kind of makes me think that they're weak. I'm just going to call here because I think I have not much fold equity, and his stack, he just gives him a chance to jam on me for a raise. And I'd rather just keep the pot small and just try and hit. I think this is maybe a fold.
I would think so.
Because if he has got a king or a jack, it's really easy for me to overestimate how much equity I've actually got. And on top of that, I'm in a pretty bad reverse implied on spot.
Right. I mean, you're really hoping for a 10, an ace or a 9 there.
And in this spot here, it was a limped pot. I've bet out twice. Been called twice. I'm just going to check fold now. Unless he bets really small. Because, for example, I don't think he's going to bet pocket 8s, pocket 7s. Those type of hands. The type of hands I expect to have called me for 2 streets. I'm just going to bet here just because he's giving up. I kind of don't want to give him a shot to his overcards that he's possibly giving up with. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be turning pocket 8s, pocket 7s, or whatever he took bluff.
No, I don't think
so. Therefore, I'm just willing just to give it. I'm just giving credit. My hand isn't that strong. I'm not that bothered about having to fold it. Here, I might go for a check raise with my gut shot, 1 overcard and backdoor flush. Here I would isolate if these guys actually had stacks, but they don't, so that's not. Yeah, I'm just going to see that. Obviously, the bluff is try and make him fold his equity share, because otherwise it's just a check fold, and I don't particularly want to check fold. Right, so what size are we going to make this? That seems reasonable. And this is sort of hands that I like to do this with, because if I get 3-bet or whatever, I'm just not that bothered because I'm not folding that much equity. Whereas if we had the 6-7 there, 6-7 of clubs, I'd feel less inclined to do it because I'm going to get blown off too much equity a lot when people just jam the King X or whatever. But if I got 3-bet there, I wouldn't have been that bothered. But the King, I'm kind of just going to fold now because I've made a strong raise into 2 players. He's called me. He's probably not calling me with air. So therefore, I'm not going to try and make him fold a good hand.
Right, and I think that.
And if he's got, say, pocket queens or pocket jacks or something, he's almost certainly going to check back at this point.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Well, and then
now I've
river the nuts. The effective nuts at this point.
So now I'm really tempted to jam and try and rep an awful lot there. Because, I mean, what do I rep when I jam here? King X, which I think he can have some of the time.
And if he's going to call you with a king, if he's going to call $4, he's going to call an all-in. So it makes sense to me. Either get max value or get no value from nothing.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking his calling range is King X or nothing. So therefore, let's go for it.
And voila.
Works out perfectly.
And so that's that concept we talk about, over jamming to look weak, and he repped a king, and either you're going to get max value from any king or you're going to get nothing at all.
That's something I do actually do a lot, and it's amazing how often you do get called because people just play passive in the turn. It's clearly been scared of the double check raise. I mean, the double check raise is as rare as hen's teeth. More people are still scared of it, and my check raises effectively bought me 2 cards.
Right. Well,
and then got me full value on the river. He should be betting that turn. When I check again, he should probably be betting that turn.
Yeah.
So just for pure value.
It was a mistake on his part.
But I don't blame him for calling the river because I basically rep. I mean, I would just say, for example, if I had ace king, I wouldn't have checked the turn. So I'm basically repping 4s or 5s or air most of the time. To his mind, if he's thinking that way.
Right, and what was his hand? King 8 or King 9?
King 9 suited. So I mean, his flop call is ambitious. If I'm check raising any kind of hand of value, he's in jail. So his flop call is ambitious to begin with.
Yeah, I don't
which
like
kind
his...
of then, by extension, then makes his river call a little bit ambitious. But my turn check has probably confused him.
Yeah, on your turn check, he probably should have bet. He probably should have figured you could be, re-raising him with pocket aces.
You don't have to bet very big on the turn. I mean, you could probably get away with just betting around $1.70 there. And I'm just going to be check folding such a lot of the time. It's so rare that I'm going to be going for a double check raise because that just doesn't happen in these games.
No.
It's not something. I'm probably one of the more aggressive players, and I'm not doing it often. So if I'm not, other people certainly aren't either. So he can probably safely go for it there and just assume that, yeah, he's going to make me fold air most of the time. But he doesn't mind me folding. I mean, he would have made me fold probably on 7 outs. He's getting me to fold 20% equity. That I'm probably never going to bluff with on the river. So therefore, if I'm never going to bluff, he may as well just make a small value bet because I could call there. I mean, there's some hands that I could call with. Just because for whatever reason, I could have 6-7 and call. I could have 4-3 and call, depending on how bad I am.
Right.
So there's still some value for him to be had.
And it just shows that small mistakes lead to big mistakes on the river with bad players. So, yeah, I don't like his flop call if he's giving up on the turn and he's afraid that you have a bigger king and then he's calling you down the river.
The question at the top right table is I didn't bet the flop because I think it was 3-handed.
I think you had the best hand here.
And I'm not that into bluffing in multi-way pots. I bet the turn because I picked up some equity. And now it's a matter of do I show down my ace high thinking I could have the best hand some of the time, or do I bet small again to try and get him off better ace highs?
Well, I mean, it's double paired board, so your ace high is going to take it down.
That is a very good point. I didn't notice it was double paired, and I timed out whilst I was thinking about it. I didn't even notice. I thought it was one paired. So yeah, I would definitely check. But once I know it's double paired, I would definitely have checked back. And now I've just wasted my entire time bank on a completely trivial spot, which is a shame, but there we go. I'm just going to fold this board. It's not good for me, and he's made quite a large c-bet.
Close to a pot size bet, yeah. Even with the backdoor flush draw and overs, it's just you don't have as much equity as you'd like.
It's a situation I don't like putting money in by calling,
No.
especially with speculative calls in games where I'm expecting players to mostly be passive. If he half pots it there, I might consider doing something. But when he bets forfeits pot, I don't think he's likely to be a passive, weaker, non-regular player. I'm just going to fold it. I mean, I've got ace jack high, I've risked 2.5 big blind, whatever it was. I've missed, whatever, move on. Don't worry about it. There's a lot of the things that I do and say probably aren't on vogue in the poker world. Where it's just I've been playing such a long time and they just work in these games, and I'm more than happy to have the arguments against anybody. People may be able to articulate the arguments better. People might be able to make mathematical arguments for why we should do it. Well, there's more to it than just the math of it, especially with the players that we work with. A lot of them have mental game issues. A lot of them just they're just not that capable of getting their head around the more of the in-depth math stuff anyway. So if someone's not really that good at the math side and they have mental game issues, sometimes taking like a fight or flight attitude to playing a hand can be better for them mental game wise. So if people continually see betting because it's marginally plus EV, will continue getting played back at. How much is that plus EV anymore? You know, if it's going to affect their play for the rest of their session. I think sometimes taking a slightly lower EV line in small marginal situations actually is better for your whole session. And people will say, well, you should improve your mental game, etc., etc. Well, you can't just do that overnight. We've got to do things in small steps. And the best way to improve your mental game is to just win consistently and just feel comfortable playing. That's, in my opinion, the best way to do it in the short term. And then just gradually learn more about the math side of the game. You don't have to learn it all in one go. You learn it in bite-sized chunks. Let's learn about counting our outs today, for example, if you're a real beginner. Then let's learn about converting them outs to a percentage the next session. And then let's figure out what the guy's range is, maybe 3 lessons down the line, and then figure out how much equity his range has got against ours. And just do things in bite-sized things. What I see people doing a ton is they've got too much information going on their head. And it's a dangerous thing because they're not able to process it all. They don't even understand half of it. And they just get themselves super lost because they're mixing concepts up. They're mixing all sorts of different things up because they may have read one person on 2+2, type in something that isn't even good advice, but it's kind of resonated with them a little bit, and then they're trying to apply that. They've misapplied someone's bad advice before they know it. They're just in a big tangled mess, and then the mental game goes all to pot. And it's like we talked about when we really first started your site. We're aiming at the at beginning and losing players here with this site. We're not aiming to make super advanced videos. We're not aiming to make anything. Well, let me just play this part out. I'm just going to race and get this in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're not looking to make super advanced videos. What we're doing here, and the things that we're seeing, oftentimes would get picked apart by your moderate 2+2, 2 big blind 100, 25 with our grinder. It'd probably rip us a new ass with a lot of it. But that's not what we're aiming at. That's not the players we're aiming at. We're aiming at players who come to us who have been struggling to win, who maybe have never won or are new to poker, and hopefully just keeping these really basic and then putting them in a spot where they can go to other sites and perhaps learn more. We're like the first step on the road, if you will.
Yeah, and if you think about our target audience, I mean, that's who we're catering to. We are not catering to people who have been playing poker for 5-10 years. You know, that's why they have training sites like Run It Once, Deuces Cracked, you know, and they have a good understanding of the game of poker, the theoretical side, the mental side, mathematical side. You know, for our target audience, it's all about baby steps and figuring out one aspect of the game before.
And that's not meant in a patronising way either, because we all have to start from there.
Yeah, we were all
You know,
fish, right?
everyone when they start poker, none of us are that good. Uh, that's one of the problems these days. People come in and they can be just awash with tons and tons of information and probably too much information, which is why I like to keep things really, really basic when I'm helping people because I just take things back. Let's just strip it back, take things from scratch, and go from there. It's hard to understand what people know, what they truly understand, what they don't understand, and then they'll say, "Well, shouldn't I be doing this?" And they're explaining concepts to you that they clearly don't understand. So rather than try and correct a level 2 leak, I mean, like, well, let's not even think about that for now. Let's just forget that, park that, put it out the way, and let's get the basics right first, and then we can after you've got the basics right, it might be that you need to go and find a different coach, or you need to go and get advice from a website that caters more to your needs now, that caters more to the needs of the intermediate player than the beginning player. I see us as like a stepping stone, not some site that can get you from 5 to 400 now, for example. I don't think we're equipped for that.
No,
I don't
not at
think it's
all.
what we're about. Here I am very tempted to call because when the jack pairs a river, it makes it less likely he's got a jack. I'll check back. So my range is kind of capped. If he's aggressive, he could be bluffing here. I don't like it, but it's just half pot.
Yeah, I
So,
don't like it. It's such a small bet. You're getting such good odds that I think you'll win enough.
and there we go. I mean, hats off to him. He made a really good bet there. I'm going to give him credit for that. That's very easy for him just to take a check call line there. And he would have been disappointed because I would have checked back. And I
So
would only have bet if I had a jack or better.
yeah, and I think nines versus tens. I mean, that's going to happen. Good bet for him. And like you said, the jacks out there reduces the likelihood and the combinations of jacks are left, and you have a strong showdown hand to call that bet. So he could have been doing that with a smaller pair easily.
Yeah, again, as I said, I wasn't happy with the situation because usually people value betting in those spots. But having said that, I've capped my range on the turn, and he can just be doing it with worse also. He can just be bluffing, he can be value betting worse, and he can just be randomly clicking buttons with ace high. So, yeah, it's half pot there. I need to be right, thinking, what is it, 33%, something like that. That might not even be good
Yeah, I
that
think it was
often.
even less than
But
that. I think you were
it,
getting close to 3.5 to 1. So you only had to be right around 20%. So I think that's an easy call. You're going to win 1 in 5 times. But yeah, getting to your point, I think a good example, a good analogy of how you explained, the students and the people we're gearing towards. It's kind of like building a house, starting with the foundations and the basics, and that gets back to our mastering the basics concepts that we have on the forum and the 5 and L series, where it's just all very basic poker, and then same thing for here, except you're opening up your game more, playing more exploitively. Um, if you think about our target audience, I think this is perfect for them. We're not going to make people winning 100L or 200L regs. We're just not equipped for that. But for newer players or players that have been constantly losing over the years and struggling, I think what we're putting out is perfect for them.
yeah, I would like to think so. And if it isn't perfect for them, and if they are still scratching their heads at the end of the video, I would hope that they would be confident enough to ask. Bear in mind that the environment we're trying to create on the site, which is no question a stupid question, we don't allow any flaming to go on. We don't allow posters to interact negatively with each other. I would hope if someone doesn't understand something they've seen, just ask. No one's going to belittle you. No one's going to laugh at you. Because you might ask a question and 10 people might be thinking, wow, I'm glad he's asked that. Because I didn't understand that either. I mean, I'm explaining it as it makes sense to me as someone who's like a winning player at 100L and has been playing for 11 years. And there could be some things that you and I are discussing that don't make an awful lot of sense to a beginner. So if there's anything that we've said that doesn't make sense, just ask. You'll get a respectful, courteous answer.
Right.
And we'll be glad of the interaction. We'll be glad to know people are watching.
Yeah, I agree. And I had a friend that watches the 5 and L series, and he used to play online before Black Friday, and he's mainly a live player. In terms of the concepts and terminology, he said that a lot of those sounded like they were advanced concepts. So, when you and I are talking about things and we're putting out terminology and concept, it's second nature for us. But yeah, for those of you that are watching us, definitely ask because it's easy to get into that basic poker terminology and concepts and just think that everybody understands it. But when in fact, if you haven't read about it and you don't understand it, it's easy to just kind of take that and glance over it and not have a clue what they're talking about.
I'm not sure if you saw this, and I bluffed the river. I wasn't ever trying to get into. That's why I chose the sizing I chose. I wasn't ever trying to get him to fold an ace. When he checks again, I'll be honest, I'm surprised to see a hand as strong as it. Because I would expect most players in the games I play to value bet ace 10. Then after the turn, when check. And the board went down, I see bet the flop because obviously I have no showdown value and I have a little bit of backdoor equity. He calls. I kind of put him on an ace or 5 or a draw. He then checks the turn, I check back, and he then checks the river again. So I'm kind of ruling out aces and 5s from his range.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm putting him more on like some like pairs.
Small pocket pair, missed flush draw.
Yeah, small to medium pocket pair, missed flush draws that Jack High doesn't beat. So kind of that's what I'm aiming to make him fold. When he called, I knew it was going to be beat. Obviously, I'm always going to be beat when I get called. I was very surprised to see him have a hand as strong as.
And what did he show down with?
Ace 10 of hearts.
Oh,
I was really surprised he didn't. He didn't value bet that himself on the river. Yeah, of course. Of course, he's not getting called because I'm just going to fold. But having said that, I expect most people to bet the hand there.
Yeah, I think that's
because
a bluffing spot.
if I had say pocket jacks, pocket queens, pocket kings, I would almost certainly take a very similar line, and I would probably call a half pot bet on the river and not bet with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot to bluff. I think that's a pretty standard spot to bluff where you don't have showdown value. You can rep a weak ace, and he's going to fold any other moderate to small pocket pair.
And again, the point I'm trying to get across is the point we made in the videos that we discussed with the videos you were making, is that when I'm bluffing, you'll almost never see me try to get someone to fold top pair. If I think someone's got top pair, I'm pretty much not going to bluff them. I'm always trying to just get them to fold. You'll see when I'm bluffing, I've usually got a really weak hand too. So what I'm trying to do is to get them to fold their air that still beats my range. That's all I'm ever trying to do, which is why I never need to make any really large bluffs. Because I wouldn't try to get him to fold an ace there. Certainly wouldn't try to get him to fold a 5. I wouldn't even try to get him to fold like jacks, kings, queens. It was specifically designed to get him to fold middle pairs and draws that had me high carded.
Yeah, and if you look at the run out on that board, well, from the flop all the way to the river, he either had an ace or he had a small pocket pair. He never has a 5 the way it ran out. So,
no, of course not.
You know, that's just a perfect spot for a bluff at the micros. Yeah, and at the micros, you never want to try to bluff somebody off top pair if you put them on that. I mean, it's just
no, you're gonna lose a lot of money if you continually try and make people fold top pair when you haven't got top pair beat. You're typically going to lose a lot of money.
So 3-bet here.
Yeah, I think it's quite thin.
I think it's thin, but I think it's
because I don't think we see that much isolation at 10 and L. And when we do see isolation, I'm not sure people click pot. I think people click more 4x, 3x, and they just try and do it on the cheap. I've got the backdoor flush draw. It's called king high. There's no reason not to bet here.
So what do you do? What do you do here if he raises you?
If he raises, I'd absolutely fold. If he calls, I am going to double barrel on club, queen, maybe a 10, and definitely an ace. If it picks up, it comes like the 6 of diamonds or something, I'm probably just going to be done with it. Well, I think the key thing that's going to be happening at 10 and L is people are going to be folding to an awful lot of 3-bets, which therefore means you've got quite weak ranges. So we can't be going for the 3-bet check option too often because we're just going to get people to fold a big chunk of the time because they're calling too light in the first place.
Yeah, and there's just so many people that don't know. They're not very comfortable playing in 3-bet pots at the micros.
Yeah, I mean, for example, with this hand here, I expect him to have pretty much every single pocket pair in his range. Perhaps not 2s and 3s. Perhaps he might be the kind of player who limps behind with 2s and 3s. But he's probably going to be set minding a bunch there. So when it comes king high, and what do people put you on when you 3-bet? Basically aces, kings, queens, and ace king.
Yep.
So I mean that smashes I hits my range more than it hits his. So therefore, I'm kind of obliged to see bet, and the fact I've got a backdoor flush draw and backdoor straight draw certainly doesn't.
You're happy to double barrel on a good card.
Yeah,
So I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean that hits from his perspective. Your perceived range is that just
had that
madly
come
your hand,
down 6, 7, 8 two-tone, I would have just given up there and then.
right?
I wouldn't
Because
even
he's
have
not
considered
folding.
c-bet.
No,
No, because he's not for it. That hits this kind of range I expect him to call with. It hits all these suited connectors and middle pair type hands, which I think make up a massive chunk of his range.
yeah, and I think that just gets down to, so for the beginners watching these videos, it comes down to understanding ranges and reading players and in different types of pots and situations and stuff like that's pretty standard. So we're getting back to 5 minutes on the second video, so do a couple more hands and we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
I'm raising here just because he's made a really weak donk bet. The board's really dry, so he can't really have draws that he can play too aggressively. So I just pretty much just trapped turn 3 into a bluff. Now I'm expecting him to probably have a weak king, maybe ace-8, which would disappoint him because if he has ace-8, I should barrel. If I think he has a hand like king X, I probably should just give up.
I think if he checks back the turn, or I mean he checked the turn, if you check, he checks back the river, I think that you could potentially fire another barrel. But yeah, I think a majority of the time he has a weak king.
Yeah, there's a weak king or a strong 8, I think, when he donk calls that flop.
Right.
Because there's just no draw. It's so dry, he kind of has to have some kind of pair. And his bet's so small now. I mean, I don't think I'm ever good here. But for the purpose of the video, I kind of hoping to call.
Just to show the point.
Hopefully prove the point. I mean, you could maybe look a complete Birkin. You could have something like 5-7 here and just make me look an idiot.
I think he always has a...
Well, you had the 8. I mean, he doesn't have the... I expect him to have a stronger 8 than that. But having said that, we kind of knew he was paired up there.
Right.
And I just called just to make the point that because the board was so dry and he called, he kind of had to be paired up.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So I'll go ahead and wait for the ace-queen hand and jack-king hand to play out, and we'll go ahead and finish up the video.
I'm probably going to triple barrel here to try and get him off ace high now. Or, I mean, obviously, if he's got a hand like pocket sixes or something, he's probably just going to fold anyway. So it's either now I can either consider bluff catching because a lot of his pairs have been counterfeited. But the thing is, I don't know if he's a sort of player who's just going to give up and forget about it, or if he's going to turn counterfeited pairs into bluffs. But because I think most of his range is going to be draws, ace highs, I'm going to triple barrel to get him off ace highs specifically. Wow, he's been raised, which makes absolutely no sense.
I think this is a good bet fold spot. I agree with you that he rarely ever has a 9.
Yeah, he should never raise here with anything but value, and that's my issue I've got with eights. And again, I don't know if he's a good player. If this was a good player doing this to me, I wouldn't be standing for this. But I don't know. The guy could just have 9x and be, sitting there fist pumping. I don't know. So we'll just give it to him.
Yeah.
Here, I would normally double barrel this card, but I'm not sure how often the guy's going to fold. And it could be mainly because of his stack size. If he had 873, I would double barrel constantly. But he's got just over pot left. He's probably not of a mind to fold a 9, which is kind of what I'd be hoping he folded. Again, I think if he checks the river, I think I might jam. Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna jam on that card if he checks.
Yeah, on the turn, I think that if you bet, I mean, you just got to be happy to get it in on the turn.
And I'm hoping he checks here so I can jam, and then I'm hoping I can make him fold a 5 or 2 or something like that.
So you're just gonna put him in.
Yeah. Why not? Why the heck not? I would have had an ace. If I had the ace, for example, I would have made the same bet. Not that I'm bothered about balance, but I would have made the same bet with an ace.
Yeah. Another standard spot for you to go ahead and bluff out, representing that scared card.
Well, the run-out's been really good for us there. It was a dry flop, and then the board ran out king ace, and the guy's shown no interest in the pot. I think if we're not bluffing there, we're not bluffing enough. Because that's a really good bluff spot.
Yeah, and that hits a lot of your range too, since you're the pre-flop aggressor. So
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
exactly. So
It hits my range. He's displaying a ton of weakness. There's no reason to not bluff there.
exactly. So just a good example of that you can get away with bluffs with the micros, but you just have to time them right and pick your spots. Just don't get overly aggressive and spew off chips. But if the board runs out the way that it should, and you put players on specific ranges the way they're playing, they can be quite successful.
Yeah, you need to. If you can reason it out, I have no issue with anyone bluffing. You know, that there we reasoned it out and we identified it as a good spot to bluff. If you're just bluffing for the sake of bluffing because you can't see any other way to win the pot, but you're not really sure what he's got, well, it's probably a mistake. Here, I'm just going to raise because why not? I just want to call a 10-cent bet. Here, I'm going to see it because the board's dry and I've got backdoors. Here, I'm just going to fold because he's potted it and he's got no money. So he's probably not going to be folding too often if I got out of line.
Yeah, and you're not happy with continuing to play with that little equity.
This turn card is quite interesting because when he does this, I mean, the problem is, what do I get value from if I jam? This is my issue here, and it's quite a confusing spot to players who aren't really that experienced because kind of you want to raise because like, look at me, I've got trips, but what do you get value from? I think if it didn't come a diamond on this turn card, I'd be quite tempted just to call and as if it's check, because I see this as like respond to a min bet the same way we respond to a check. So therefore we can just check back and like pot control a little bit. But because I've got the diamonds, I'm happy just to raise. And then the times he has got me, he's got an ace, obviously we're crushed. We do at least have some equity against him. Whereas if that was to the 10 of clubs, I may have taken a pot control line and just called there because now I expect us to be behind a lot.
Yeah,
I see weak players take these lines a lot where they min dog to induce. It's, you know, they don't realise they may as well just check raise.
yeah. I mean, you could be looking to chop.
And that's exactly what I expected to see there. You know, almost, you know, once he takes that line, he's almost certainly got a better ace, which is why if we didn't hit the diamond, I would have just called, just to control the size of the pot. But because we have the diamonds, and because he might just be dicking around with who knows what.
It was just such an odd line. Such an odd line for him to take with just min betting to induce. But yeah, I mean, you picked up tons of equity with the flush draw against his trips there. I mean, there's
the key point from there is I wouldn't have made the raise had I not picked up the flush draw. The flush draw was the reason for my raising because I thought there's a good chance I'm behind here. Right, but if I am behind now, I picked up a bunch of equity, so
yeah, and that's
I'm much more comfortable with the money going in. Because who knows? He may be bet calling there with pocket sevens. Who knows? I mean, he could be that bad. Who knows why these people do these things? He's clearly taking a bad line anyway. So he's clearly a bad player. So I'm not going to try and put too much reasoning towards it. And I'm just going to use how much equity do I have against the top of his range, and I consider myself to have enough to make a decent size raise there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there was really any other play there in that spot with the equity. But anyways, we're creeping up on 45 minutes, so we'll go ahead and close out our second episode for our new 10-0 series. It's been fun watching you play 888. I definitely like these games, and like you said, for those of you that aren't playing on 888 and you can, probably want to switch over just because these games are just so soft and so easy to beat. Definitely want to check them out if you're not.
Just stay out of my games if you're good. That's all I'm saying. If you're good, don't come and join me in my games.
Exactly, yeah. Stay off of reg games.
Stay on PokerStars if you're good.
All right. Well, Paul, appreciate you doing these video series. For those watching our series, if you'd like to see more of Paul playing MicroStakes on 888, definitely let us know. And as usual, if you have any questions, let us know as well. Paul, again, thanks. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, everybody. Take care. Thanks for watching.